He woke up with no name, no past, and no idea he owned half the city. Until 10 black SUVs pulled up to the only woman who had ever loved him as nothing. Hello beautiful souls, and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel. The place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here. Ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again, because every story we share here is for you. Now, the story begins. Rose. The rain had been falling for hours, heavy and unforgiving, drumming against the rusted zinc roof like it had something to prove. Rachel barely noticed. She stood at the edge of the small roadside clinic, her arms folded tightly against her chest, watching as the last patient of the day limped away into the muddy street. The flickering bulb above her head buzzed weakly, threatening to go out at any second, just like everything else in her life. Inside, the smell of antiseptic mixed with damp wood and fatigue lingered in the air. Rachel. The elderly nurse called from behind her. You should go home. It's getting late. Rachel nodded, but didn't move. Home. The word felt heavier than it should. A one-room space with cracked walls. A leaking ceiling. A mattress that had seen better days. And silence, too much silence. I'll lock up, she replied softly. The nurse studied her for a moment, as if she wanted to say more, but then simply sighed and left. Rachel exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from exhaustion. Life had a way of draining her, little by little, without ever asking for permission. Still she endured. She always did. Because that's what people like her did. They survived. Across the city, miles away from muddy roads and flickering lights, everything looked different. Brighter. Colder. Controlled. McPherson adjusted his cufflinks as he stood before the floor-to-ceiling glass window of his penthouse office, overlooking the glowing skyline. The city bent to his will. Every building, every contract, every deal whispered his name in rooms he never even entered. Power followed him like a shadow. And yet something felt off. You're quiet tonight, his assistant said cautiously from behind him. McPherson didn't turn. I'm thinking. That's dangerous, she replied with a faint smile, trying to lighten the mood. But he didn't smile back. Instead, his reflection stared at him from the glass. Sharp suit, perfect posture, unreadable expression. A man who had everything, and yet felt nothing. Cancel tomorrow's meetings, he said suddenly. The assistant blinked. Sir? You have the merger. Cancel it. There was no room for argument in his tone. A pause. Yes, sir. When she left, silence swallowed the room whole. McPherson loosened his tie slightly, his jaw tightening. For a brief second, just a second, something flickered in his chest. A strange emptiness. Or maybe a question. Is this all there is? He shook it off immediately. Feelings were distractions. And he didn't do distractions. Hours later, the storm worsened. Thunder cracked across the sky like a warning no one could understand. Rachel wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders as she walked home, her slippers sinking into the wet earth. The streetlights were few, and most of them were dead anyway. The night felt uneasy, like something was about to happen. She paused. A distant sound cut through the rain. Screeching tires. Then, crash. Her heart jumped violently. For a moment she froze. People in her neighborhood didn't run toward danger. They minded their business. They survived. But something in her chest refused to stay still. Rachel swallowed hard, then ran. The rain slapped against her skin as she followed the sound, her breath coming fast, uneven. When she reached the bend in the road, she saw it. A black car, smashed violently against a broken concrete barrier. Smoke curled from the engine. The driver's door hung open slightly. Her steps slowed. Fear crept in. Hello, she called out, her voice trembling. No response. Only the rain answered. Rachel hesitated, just for a second. Then she moved closer. Inside the car, slumped over the steering wheel, was a man. Blood trickled down the side of his forehead. His clothes expensive. His watch, something she had only ever seen in magazines. He didn't belong here. Not in her world. Not in her life. This kind of man came with problems. Big ones. Rachel's chest tightened. She could walk away. No one would blame her. In fact, most people would say it was the smart thing to do. She had enough struggles already. Why invite more? But then, the man shifted slightly. A faint, broken sound escaped his lips. Alive. Barely. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. Struggling. Fighting herself. Then she whispered, almost like a prayer. I can't leave you. And just like that, her life changed forever. She pulled the car door open with effort, the metal groaning in protest. Hey, can you hear me? She asked, her voice softer now. The man didn't respond. His breathing was shallow. Unsteady. Carefully she reached in, trying to support his weight. He was heavier than she expected, his body limp, uncooperative. This is crazy, she muttered under her breath. But she didn't stop. Because something about him, something about this moment, felt bigger than fear. It felt like fate. If you were in Rachel's position, would you have walked away, or risked everything for a stranger? Tell me in the comments. By the time she dragged him halfway down the road, Rachel was shaking, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she had done. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. She didn't know that somewhere, powerful people were already searching for him. All she knew was that she couldn't let him die. Back in the wrecked car, something slipped from his pocket unnoticed. A sleek black card, embossed with a name, McPherson. And beneath it, a symbol of a world Rachel had never stepped into. A world that was already on its way to find him. The rain didn't stop. And neither did destiny. The rain didn't stop that night. It followed them, soaking relentless, almost as if it refused to let the moment pass quietly. By the time Rachel dragged him into her small room, her entire body ached. Her arms trembled from exhaustion. Her breath uneven as she pushed the wooden door shut with her foot. The room was dim. A single kerosene lamp flickered on a stool beside her bed, casting long, dancing shadows across the cracked walls. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at him. A stranger. A man who clearly didn't belong in her world. Now lying unconscious on her worn-out mattress. This is madness, she whispered. But she was already moving. She grabbed an old cloth and a small bowl of water, kneeling beside him. Her hands hesitated just above his face. Up close he looked even more out of place. Sharp features. Clean-cut beard. Skin untouched by the harshness of struggle. Even injured, he carried a kind of presence that made the room feel too small for him. Who are you? She murmured softly. No answer. Only the sound of his shallow breathing. Rachel exhaled slowly, then began cleaning the blood from his forehead. The cut wasn't too deep, but it had bled enough to scare her. Stay with me, please, she said under her breath, as if he could hear her. Her fingers were gentle, careful. Despite everything she had been through in life, kindness still lived in her hands. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time blurred in the quiet tension of that small room. Then suddenly, he moved. A sharp intake of breath. Rachel froze. His fingers twitched slightly, his brows tightening like he was fighting something unseen. Hey, she leaned closer, her voice trembling. Can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open. Dark. Confused. Lost. They scanned the room quickly, panic rising almost instantly. Where? His voice was rough, barely a whisper. Where am I? Rachel swallowed. You're safe, she said gently. There was an accident. I found you. He blinked slowly, trying to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through his body. He groaned. Easy, she quickly placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't move too fast. He stilled. His breathing became heavier. Then came the question that changed everything. Who are you? Rachel frowned slightly. I'm Rachel. A pause. Then. No, he whispered, confusion deepening in his voice. I mean, who am I? Silence. The air in the room shifted. Rachel's heart skipped. What do you mean? she asked cautiously. His eyes searched hers, desperate now. I don't. He shook his head slowly, frustration building. I don't remember. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Heavy. Unavoidable. I don't remember anything. Rachel leaned back slightly, her mind racing. No memory? Was that even possible? She studied his face again, this time not just as a stranger, but as a mystery. Your name? She hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know it either. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Panic. Real panic. No, that's not. He pressed his fingers against his temples as if trying to force something back. I should know this. I should know who I am. You hit your head, Rachel said softly. It happens sometimes, memory loss. He looked at her like he was holding on to the last thread of reality. Then tell me something about me. Rachel's lips parted, but no words came out. Because she knew nothing. Absolutely nothing. And for the first time in her life, Rachel realized. She was the only thing this man had. The room suddenly felt too small. Too quiet. Too heavy with uncertainty. What if he stopped, swallowing hard. What if I'm not a good person? The question hung in the air. Raw. Honest. Rachel's gaze softened. She didn't know why, but something in her heart answered before her mind could. Then you wouldn't be asking that question. He stared at her. Something shifted. A tiny flicker of calm in the storm inside him. Outside, thunder rolled again. Loud. Warning. But inside that small room, something fragile had just begun. A connection built not on status, not on power, not on history, but on vulnerability. On nothing. Rachel stood slowly. You should rest, she said. Your body needs it. He didn't argue. He simply lay back down, his eyes still fixed on her like she was the only anchor he had left. Don't go, he said suddenly. The words caught her off guard. I won't, she replied quietly. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she meant it. Hours passed. The rain softened. The night grew deeper. Rachel sat on the floor beside the bed, her back against the wall, watching him as he finally drifted into sleep. Her mind refused to rest. Who was he? Where did he come from? And more importantly, what had she just brought into her life? Her eyes drifted to the corner of the room, where his wet jacket lay. Something about it pulled her attention. Slowly, she got up and walked over. She hesitated, then reached into the pocket. Her fingers brushed against something smooth. She pulled it out. A black card. Sleek. Elegant. Expensive. Her breath caught as she read the name embossed on it. McPherson. Below it, a logo she didn't recognize, but somehow knew meant power. Real power. Her hands trembled slightly. This man, she whispered, is not ordinary. She turned back to look at him. Sleeping. Peaceful. Helpless. So different from whatever life that card represented. And in that moment, Rachel realized something terrifying. When he wakes up fully, when his world finds him, everything will change. Do you think Rachel should tell him the truth about what she found? Or keep it hidden for now? Tell me what you would do. Outside, far beyond the quiet streets she called home, engines roared to life. Men in suits spoke in urgent tones. Phones rang. Orders were given. A search had already begun. And they were getting closer. Inside that small room, one life had been saved. But neither of them knew that saving him would cost her everything. Morning came quietly. Too quietly. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried its weight, thick, damp, and uneasy. Rachel hadn't slept. Not even for a second. She sat by the window, her knees pulled close to her chest, watching the early light struggle to break through the gray sky. The black card rested in her hand, its smooth surface catching the faint glow of dawn. McPherson. The name didn't fit the man lying on her bed. Not the confused, vulnerable stranger who had held on to her words like they were the only truth he had left. That man felt different. Safer. Human. Her grip tightened slightly around the card. Who are you really? She whispered. Behind her. Movement. She turned quickly. He was awake. McPherson sat up slowly. wincing as the pain in his head reminded him that none of this was a dream. His eyes scanned the room again, but this time the panic wasn't as sharp. It had been replaced by something else. Uncertainty. Morning, Rachel said softly, standing up. He looked at her. And for a brief moment, something softened in his gaze. Morning, he replied, his voice still rough. Silence stretched between them. Not awkward. Just fragile. How do you feel? She asked, walking closer. Like I've been hit by a truck, he said faintly, attempting a weak smile. Rachel almost smiled back. Almost. But the card in her hand felt heavier now. You should eat something, she said, quickly turning away. I'll make something simple. As she moved, McPherson noticed something. Her hand. The card. What's that? He asked. She froze. Just for a second. Then slowly turned back. This, she hesitated. I found it in your pocket. She handed it to him. Carefully. Like it carried more than just a name. McPherson took it, his fingers brushing against hers briefly. The contact sent a strange, unfamiliar feeling through him. Something he couldn't quite place. He looked down. Read the name. McPherson. His brow furrowed. He turned the card over. Studied it. Waited. For something. Anything. But nothing. No memory. No recognition. Just emptiness. This is me, he asked quietly. I think so, Rachel replied. He stared at it longer. As if staring hard enough would force his past to return. But it didn't. Instead, frustration crept in. So I have a name, he muttered. That's something, right? His tone tried to be light. But the pain underneath was impossible to hide. Rachel watched him carefully. You don't have to figure everything out today, she said gently. He looked up at her. Don't I? The question hit deeper than expected. He stood up suddenly. Too fast. The room spun. He grabbed onto the edge of the bed, steadying himself. I need to leave, he said. Rachel blinked. Leave? I can't just stay here, he continued, his voice tightening. I need to find out who I am. Where I came from. There has to be someone looking for me. Her chest tightened at his words. Of course. Someone like him. Didn't just disappear unnoticed. They'll find me, he added. Rachel's eyes flickered for a second. They're already looking. But she didn't say it. Instead, she shook her head. You can barely stand, she said firmly. Where exactly do you plan to go? I don't know. His voice rose slightly, frustration spilling over. But I can't just sit here doing nothing. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Rachel took a step back. Not from fear, but from the sudden distance his words created. You think I'm doing nothing? She asked quietly. He froze. The realization hit him instantly. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. I pulled you out of that car. I brought you here. I stayed up all night making sure you didn't die. Her eyes glistened slightly, but she refused to let the tears fall. And now you're acting like this is some kind of prison. McPherson swallowed hard. Guilt crept in. I didn't mean to, he said, softer now. Rachel shook her head. It's fine. But it wasn't. And they both knew it. He looked around the room again. Really looked this time. The cracked walls. The worn furniture. The small space that barely held the weight of their conversation. This was her world. And he had just disrespected it without thinking. I'm sorry, he said finally. Rachel didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned away, busying herself with something that didn't need attention. Because if she looked at him right now, she might feel something she wasn't ready for. Minutes passed in silence. Thick. Unspoken. Then, Rachel. She paused. But didn't turn. Why did you help me? The question was simple. But the answer wasn't. I don't know, she said after a moment. Everyone knows why they do something like that. She shook her head slowly. Not always. He studied her back, her stillness, the way her shoulders carried more than just the weight of the moment. You could have left me there, he said. Yes. But you didn't. No. Why? Finally. She turned. Her eyes met his. And for a brief second, all the walls between them felt thinner. Because you were alone, she said quietly. The words landed softly, but they carried truth, raw and undeniable. McPherson exhaled slowly. Something about that answer stayed with him. You were alone. He didn't know his past, didn't know his life, but in that moment, he believed her. Outside, life continued. Vendors shouted. Children laughed. The world moved forward like nothing had changed. But inside that small room, everything was shifting. Rachel placed a small plate of food on the table. It's not much, she said, but you need strength. McPherson sat down slowly. Thank you. She nodded, but didn't sit with him. Instead, she stood by the window again, watching the outside world like she was trying to hold on to it, because something inside her was beginning to drift toward him, and that scared her more than anything. Do you think McPherson is right to want to leave? Or should he trust Rachel and stay? What would you do in his situation? As he ate quietly, McPherson glanced at her again. Rachel. She didn't turn this time. If I stay, he said slowly, it's not because I have nowhere else to go. A pause. It's because I trust you. Her breath caught slightly, just for a second, but she didn't respond, because trust was something she had learned not to believe in so easily. But deep down, something had already begun. Far away, engines moved through the city, closer now, faster, more precise. The search was tightening, and soon, there would be no more space for hesitation. Inside that room, two strangers stood on the edge of something fragile, something dangerous, something real. And neither of them was ready for what came next. The day didn't go as planned. It never does, when life decides to take control. By midday, the sky had cleared, but tension still lingered in the air like a storm that refused to leave. McPherson stood near the doorway, staring outside as if the answers to his life were hidden somewhere in the busy street. People passed. Cars moved. Voices blended into noise. But none of it meant anything to him. It was like watching a movie he didn't remember being part of. I'll go with you. Rachel's voice broke the silence behind him. He turned. You don't have to, he said. I know. A pause. But I will. Her tone wasn't soft this time. It was firm. Decided. Moments later, they stepped out together. Side by side. Two people from completely different worlds, now forced into the same path. The streets were alive. Loud vendors called out prices. The scent of fried food filled the air, and children ran barefoot through puddles left behind by the rain. McPherson took it all in slowly. Every detail. Every sound. Every face. It was overwhelming. Not because it was unfamiliar, but because it felt like it should be. Yet somehow it didn't. Stay close, Rachel said, glancing back at him. I'm not a child, he replied lightly. She stopped walking, turned, and gave him a look. A serious one. You don't even know your own name, she said. So for now, yes, you are. He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Because she wasn't wrong. A small, reluctant smile tugged at his lips. Fair point. They walked further down the road, the noise growing louder, the crowd thicker. McPherson's gaze shifted constantly, like he was searching for something he couldn't define. A memory. A feeling. Anything. But nothing came. Only fragments of discomfort. And the growing realization that he was completely lost. Let's try the clinic, Rachel said. Maybe someone there can help. He nodded. It wasn't much, but it was something. The clinic was just as small and worn as her home. The elderly nurse looked up as they entered, her eyes widening slightly. You brought him here? She asked Rachel quietly. I couldn't leave him, Rachel replied. The nurse studied McPherson carefully, then sighed. Well, bring him in. Hours passed in tests, questions, and quiet concern. Any memory at all? The nurse asked gently. McPherson shook his head. Nothing. Name. A pause. McPherson, he said, uncertain. The nurse nodded slowly, jotting it down. You're lucky to be alive, she said. But head injuries like this, memory loss, can take time. Days. Weeks. Sometimes longer. Rachel's heart sank slightly. Will it come back? She asked. The nurse hesitated. Maybe. That one word carried too much weight. As they stepped outside again, the sun had begun to set. Golden light stretched across the street, casting long shadows around them. McPherson exhaled deeply. Though, I'm stuck like this. For now, Rachel said softly. He laughed dryly. Great. They walked in silence for a while. Then, it happened. A group of men stood at the far end of the street, well-dressed, out of place. Their presence alone shifted the atmosphere. McPherson slowed. Something in his chest tightened. Do you know them? Rachel asked quietly. He squinted slightly, tried to focus, tried to feel something. But again, nothing. No, he said. But his voice wasn't convincing. One of the men glanced in their direction. For a brief second, their eyes met. McPherson's breath hitched. A strange sensation ran through him. Not memory, but instinct. Like something deep inside him was reacting before his mind could catch up. Let's go, Rachel said quickly, grabbing his hand. The contact shocked both of them, but neither pulled away. They turned down another path, walking faster now. Why are we running? He asked. I don't like the look of them, she replied. He glanced back briefly. The men hadn't followed, but the tension remained. They didn't speak again until they reached her home. She shut the door quickly, her chest rising and falling faster than usual. McPherson stood there, still holding on to the feeling of her hand in his. Warm, steady, safe. That was strange, he said. Yes. You think they're looking for me? Rachel hesitated. The truth sat on her tongue. Heavy, dangerous. I don't know, she said finally. But deep down, she did. Silence filled the room again. But this time it felt different. Closer, tighter, like the space between them had shrunk. You can't leave, she said suddenly. He looked at her. What? Not yet, she added. Until we understand what's going on. He studied her face. Serious, concerned, almost protective. And if I don't want to stay? He asked. Rachel stepped closer. Not aggressively, but firmly. Then I'll remind you that you almost died yesterday. A pause. And that right now, I'm the only one you can trust. Their eyes locked. The air between them thickened. Not with conflict, but with something deeper, unspoken. McPherson exhaled slowly, then nodded. All right. Relief flickered across her face, but she quickly hid it. Night fell again. Quiet. Still. Rachel laid out a thin blanket on the floor. You take the bed, she said. He frowned. And you? I'll be fine. He shook his head immediately. No. She blinked. What? I'm not taking your bed. You're injured. And you saved my life, he cut in. So we're not arguing about this. She stared at him, surprised. Because for the first time, he didn't sound like a lost man. He sounded certain. Fine, she said eventually. But if you fall, don't blame me. A small smile appeared on his face. Deal. They settled in. The room dim again. The silence softer now. Minutes passed. Then, Rachel, he called quietly. Yes. A pause. Thank you. She didn't respond immediately, because something about the way he said it was real, deep, different. You're welcome, she whispered back. Do you think Rachel is right to keep him close? Or is she putting herself in danger? Let me know your thoughts. Outside, far in the distance, engines moved again. Closer this time. More deliberate. More certain. Inside that small room, something fragile was growing. Trust. Connection. Something neither of them expected. But the world outside was closing in. And soon, they wouldn't be able to hide from it anymore. The night was quieter than the one before, but somehow heavier. Rachel couldn't sleep. Again. She lay on the thin blanket, staring up at the ceiling where faint water stains mapped out years of silent struggle. The kerosene lamp had gone out, leaving the room in darkness, except for the soft glow of moonlight slipping through the window. Across from her, McPherson slept on the bed, restless, his breathing uneven, like his body was fighting battles his mind couldn't remember. Then, he moved. A sharp inhale. A low, strained whisper escaped his lips. No, stop. Rachel sat up immediately. McPherson. He turned slightly, his face tightening in pain. Don't take it, he muttered. Her heart skipped. A dream. Or something more. She stood quickly and moved to his side. Hey, wake up, she said gently, placing a hand on his arm. His body tensed. Mine, he whispered, his voice breaking. And then, his eyes snapped open. He gasped, breathing hard, sweat clinging to his skin. Rachel pulled her hand back slightly, startled. You're okay, she said softly. It's just a dream. He stared at her. But for a moment, it was like he didn't see her, like he was still somewhere else. What did you see? She asked carefully. He blinked, then shook his head. I don't know. But that wasn't true. Something had been there. Something real. Something painful. I heard you, Rachel said quietly. You were saying, don't take it. McPherson frowned, frustration rising. I don't remember, he said, his voice tightening. It's like it's right there, but I can't reach it. He pressed his fingers against his temple again. Everything feels broken. Rachel watched him closely, not just with concern, but with understanding. Because broken things, she understood. Sometimes, she said slowly, the past doesn't come back all at once. He looked at her. It comes in pieces, painful ones first. A pause. Memories tied to fear or loss. His gaze softened slightly. You sound like you've been there before. Rachel looked away. Silence. For a moment, it seemed like she wouldn't answer. But then, my father used to say that, she murmured. McPherson's attention sharpened. Used to. She nodded faintly. He believed memories were like scars. The deeper the pain, the longer they stay. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like she had practiced saying it without feeling it. What happened to him? McPherson asked gently. Rachel hesitated. Her fingers tightened slightly against her own arm. Then, he died. The words were simple, but the silence that followed wasn't. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She shrugged. It was a long time ago. But her eyes said otherwise. He got sick, she continued after a moment. We couldn't afford proper treatment. The clinic. She glanced around the room. This clinic did what they could. Her voice cracked slightly, but it wasn't enough. McPherson felt something shift inside him. A heaviness. A quiet anger. Not at her, but at a world he didn't remember, yet somehow already resented. You were alone, he asked. She nodded. After he died, yes. The room felt smaller again, but not in a suffocating way. In a shared way, like two broken stories had found the same space. That's why you stayed, he said suddenly. Rachel looked at him. What? That night, he continued. When you found me. A pause. You didn't want someone else to be alone. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Because he was right. She looked away again. You don't know that. I don't remember my past, he said softly. But I know what I feel. A beat. And right now, I feel like you saved me for a reason. Rachel's chest tightened. Because that scared her. More than anything. Don't say things like that, she said quickly. Why not? Because you don't know what kind of person you were before. Her voice was sharper now. Defensive. Guarded. What if I was selfish? She continued. Or cruel. Or worse. McPherson held her gaze. Then I'd still be the man sitting here right now. The words were quiet, but firm. And that man, he added, would still be grateful to you. Silence. Heavy. Emotional. Rachel turned away again, her breathing slightly uneven. You don't understand, she whispered. Then help me understand. She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. People like you don't stay, she said. McPherson frowned. People like me? She turned back to him, her eyes finally revealing what she had been holding in. Wealthy. Powerful. Untouchable. The words hit harder than she intended. You come into places like this, and you leave. A pause. And nothing changes for you. McPherson stared at her, the weight of her words settling in. Even without his memory, they felt true. But everything changes for people like me, she continued, her voice quieter now. Because we're the ones left behind. The room fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't fragile. It was exposed. McPherson looked down at his hands. Then back at her. I don't know who I was, he said slowly. A beat. But I know who I want to be. Rachel's breath caught slightly. And who's that? She asked. He held her gaze. Someone who doesn't leave. The words landed deep. Too deep. Before she could respond, a sudden knock hit the door. Loud. Unexpected. Both of them froze. Rachel's heart began to race. Who is that? McPherson asked. She shook her head slightly. I don't know. But something in her chest whispered otherwise. The knock came again. Harder this time. More urgent. Open the door. A voice called from outside. Mail. Firm. Not from around here. Rachel's eyes widened slightly. McPherson stood slowly, instinctively stepping closer to her. What's going on? He asked. Her mind raced. Fast. Dangerously fast. The voice came again. Miss, we know you're in there. Silence. Sharp. Tense. Rachel turned slowly toward McPherson, her voice barely above a whisper. They found you. If you were Rachel right now, would you open that door, or protect him at all cost? What would you do? The knock came again. Louder. More forceful. And in that moment, everything changed. Because the past was no longer waiting. It had arrived. The knock didn't stop. It echoed through the small room like a countdown neither of them was ready for. Open the door. The voice outside was sharper now. Impatient. Used to being obeyed. Rachel's heart pounded so loudly, she was sure they could hear it from outside. McPherson stood close behind her, his presence steady, but tense. Do you trust me? She whispered suddenly. He didn't hesitate. Yes. The answer came too fast. Too sure. And for a moment, everything else faded. Then don't say anything, she said. Before he could respond, she stepped forward and opened the door. 3 men stood outside, dressed in dark suits, clean, sharp, out of place in her world. The one in front stepped forward slightly, his eyes scanning her face before flicking past her, into the room. Searching. Calculating. We're looking for someone, he said. Rachel leaned casually against the doorframe, blocking the view inside. You've been knocking like you want to break my door, she replied. At least say good evening. The man's expression didn't change. Have you seen a man pass through here? He asked, ignoring her tone. Her pulse spiked. But her face remained calm. No, she said simply. A pause. Long. Uncomfortable. The man studied her like he was trying to read between her words. Behind her, McPherson stood still. Silent. Watching. Something inside him stirred again. Not memory but instinct. Danger. Ma'am, the man said again, his voice lowering slightly. This is serious. Rachel crossed her arms. So is my privacy. Another pause. Then finally. The man nodded once. We'll be around. And just like that, they turned and walked away. Rachel didn't close the door immediately. She watched them leave. Watched the way they moved. The way the street seemed to shift around them. Power. Real power. Only when they disappeared completely did she shut the door. Slowly. Carefully. Then she leaned against it. Exhaled. They're not just looking for you, she said quietly. McPherson stepped closer. They're hunting me. She nodded faintly. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't fear that dominated the space. It was something deeper. More personal. You lied for me, he said. She gave a small, tired shrug. You needed it. That doesn't explain why you did it. Rachel looked at him. Really looked this time. Maybe I don't want to lose you yet. The words slipped out before she could stop them. And the moment they did, everything shifted. They both felt it. That invisible line crossed. McPherson took a step closer. Then another. Until there was barely any space left between them. You barely know me, he said softly. I know enough. What if I bring trouble into your life? A pause. You already did. Her lips curved slightly, but her eyes didn't. Because the truth was, she didn't regret it. For a moment, neither of them moved. Didn't speak. Didn't look away. Then, McPherson reached out slowly, his hand hovering near her face, giving her time to pull back, to stop him. But she didn't. His fingers brushed lightly against her cheek. Warm. Careful. Like he was afraid she might disappear. Rachel's breath caught. Her eyes fluttered shut for just a second. And in that moment, all the noise in her life faded. All the struggle. All the loneliness. Gone. You feel real, he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly. So do you. A small laugh escaped him. Soft. Uncertain. I don't even know who I am, he said. But I know this. A beat. I don't want to forget you. Her chest tightened. Because she knew. That was exactly what would happen. Eventually. Then don't, she said quietly. Even though she knew he might not have that choice. Hours passed. But neither of them noticed. They talked. Not about the past. But about everything else. Simple things. Favorite foods. Childhood dreams. Random memories she shared. And every time she spoke, McPherson listened like it mattered. Like she mattered. You wanted to be a nurse? He asked. She smiled faintly. I still do. What stopped you? She hesitated. Then shrugged. Life. He didn't push. Didn't ask more. But something in his expression changed. Like he had just added that detail to a list he didn't know he was making. And you, she asked. What do you think you were? He leaned back slightly thinking. I don't know, he said. But I don't think I was this calm. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, yeah, he nodded. I feel like I was always in control. Always moving. Always chasing something. A pause. But right now. He looked at her. I feel like I finally stopped. Her heart skipped. Because she felt it too. Night fell again. But this time, it felt different. Warmer. Safer. Rachel stood by the window, looking out into the quiet street. You can take the bed again, she said softly. No. She turned. What do you mean no? I mean, he smiled slightly, we share it. Her eyes widened. Excuse me. He raised his hands quickly. I mean there's enough space. And it's safer. A pause. Unless you don't trust me. Rachel hesitated. Her heart racing for reasons she couldn't explain. But deep down, she knew. It wasn't fear she was feeling. Fine, she said finally. But don't cross the line. He smiled. Wouldn't dare. They lay down. Careful. Keeping distance. At first. But the night was long. And silence has a way of closing gaps. At some point, their hands brushed. Lightly. Accidentally. Neither of them pulled away. Instead, their fingers slowly intertwined. No words. No promises. Just a quiet understanding. Do you think they're falling in love too fast? Or is this the kind of love that only happens once? Tell me what you think. Outside, far in the distance, engines roared again. More this time. Many more. The storm wasn't over. It was just waiting. And inside that small room, two hearts had finally found something real. Which meant there was now something to lose. Morning didn't arrive gently this time. It crashed in. The sound came first. Loud. Aggressive. Engines, many of them. Rachel's eyes snapped open. Her heart immediately racing. Beside her, McPherson stirred. What is that? He muttered, still half asleep. But she already knew. Her body knew before her mind could even catch up. They're here. The engines grew louder. Closer. Until they stopped. Right outside her house. McPherson sat up quickly, his expression tightening. Something deep inside him reacted again. That same instinct. That same unexplainable pull. I feel like, he whispered, gripping his head slightly, I know this. Rachel's chest tightened. Of course he did. Because this was his world. Then came the sound that shattered everything. Car doors slamming. One after another. Heavy. Synchronized. Powerful. Rachel stood up slowly, her legs trembling. Don't go outside, she said quickly. But McPherson was already on his feet. I have to. No. I have to know. His voice wasn't uncertain this time. It was firm. Driven. Like something inside him had finally awakened. Before she could stop him, he moved, opened the door, and stepped outside. The sight hit him instantly. 10 black SUVs. Parked in perfect formation. Men in suits surrounding the area. Alert. Focused. Waiting. And in the center of it all, one man stepped forward. Older. Composed. Authority written all over him. The moment his eyes landed on McPherson, relief flooded his face. Sir. The word carried weight. Respect. Fear. Loyalty. McPherson froze. His chest tightened. That word. It meant something. Something big. Sir. The man repeated, stepping closer. We've been searching everywhere for you. Rachel appeared behind him, her breath uneven. This was it. The moment she had feared. McPherson looked around slowly. At the cars. The men. The way they all stood. Like he mattered. Like he was important. Do I know you? He asked. The man blinked. Confused. Then. Concerned. Sir, it's me. Daniel. Your executive assistant. A pause. You don't remember? Silence. Heavy. Crushing. McPherson shook his head slowly. No. The word echoed louder than anything else. Daniel's expression darkened. He glanced briefly at the others. Then back at him. We need to get you back immediately, he said. Your company is in chaos. The board is unstable. There are decisions only you can make. The words came fast. Urgent. Like everything depended on him. McPherson's head began to ache. Images flickered. Quick. Sharp. A boardroom. Voices arguing. Papers slammed on a table. His voice cold. Commanding. He winced, gripping his head. Sir. Daniel stepped closer. McPherson breathed heavily. Something's happening. Rachel moved forward instinctively. Stop, she said firmly. He's not ready. Daniel turned to her. For the first time really seeing her. And you are. The question felt like a slap. Rachel swallowed. No one. McPherson's head snapped toward her. No, he said immediately. She's not no one. A pause. Tension thickened. Daniel's gaze sharpened. Understanding. Judgment. Sir, he said carefully. We appreciate whoever helped you. But this is beyond her now. Rachel's chest tightened. There it was. The line. Drawn clearly. She didn't belong in this world. Come, Daniel added, gesturing toward the SUVs. It's time to go home. Home. The word echoed strangely, because for a brief moment, McPherson had felt like he already found one. He turned slowly, looked at Rachel, standing there, small, still, but somehow, the strongest presence in the entire moment. He hesitated. Something pulled him toward her. Something real. Something he didn't understand. But then, another flash. Stronger this time. A contract. A signature. A voice. McPherson, you don't lose. Ever. His breathing changed. His posture shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. Rachel saw it. Felt it. That change. That distance returning. Sir, Daniel pressed gently. We don't have much time. McPherson looked at her again. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. Not cold. Not yet. But conflicted. I need to go, he said. The words broke something inside her. Instantly. Rachel nodded slowly. Of course. What else could he say? But then, come with me. She froze. What? Come with me, he repeated. We'll figure this out together. Hope flickered. Dangerous. Painful. But Daniel stepped in immediately. That won't be possible. McPherson frowned. Why not? Because, Daniel said carefully, your life is not built for people like her. The words hit harder than anything else. Silence. Deadly. Rachel looked down. There it was. The truth. Spoken out loud. McPherson's jaw tightened. That's not your decision. No, sir, Daniel replied calmly. It's reality. A long pause. McPherson looked at Rachel again. Waiting. Hoping. But she didn't look back. Instead, she stepped back. One step. Then another. You should go, she said quietly. The words shattered him. What? He asked. Her voice trembled slightly, but she held it together. This is your life, she continued. Your world. A pause. You belong there. And you, he asked. The question broke through everything. Rachel forced a small smile. I was just a stop along the way. No, he said immediately. But she shook her head. Yes. Tears burned in her eyes now, but she refused to let them fall. You don't even know who you are yet, she added softly. When you remember, you won't need me. The words cut deep, because a part of him feared. She was right. I don't want to forget you, he said. Her heart cracked. Then don't, she whispered. A beat. But don't stay because of me. Silence. Heavy. Final. McPherson stood there, torn, between two worlds. One he knew, and one he felt. Then slowly, he turned, and walked toward the SUVs. Each step felt like losing something he didn't know how to name. Rachel watched him go, her vision blurring now, her chest aching in ways she couldn't explain. He didn't look back. And that hurt the most. The doors of the SUV shut. Engines roared. And just like that, he was gone. Leaving behind a girl who had given him everything, and a love that hadn't even been given a chance to fully exist. Do you think McPherson made the right choice? Or did he just lose the only real thing in his life? Tell me what you feel. The street fell silent again. Empty. Still. Rachel stood alone. Exactly where she started. But this time, she wasn't the same. Because now, she knew what it felt like to be chosen, and then left behind. And somewhere far away, McPherson sat in a moving SUV, surrounded by power, by wealth, by everything he used to be. But his heart felt emptier than ever. Because deep down, he knew he had just walked away from something real. And he might never find it again. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows of the SUV, stretching into long golden streaks that felt almost unreal. McPherson sat in the back seat, perfectly still, surrounded by silence, surrounded by power, surrounded by everything that was supposed to be his life. But for the first time, it didn't feel like his life at all. Sir, Daniel spoke carefully from the front seat. We're heading to the headquarters. The board is waiting. The press already suspects your return. McPherson didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the passing streets. But he wasn't seeing them. He was seeing her. Rachel, standing in that doorway, tears she refused to let fall. The way her voice broke when she said, "You belong there." His jaw tightened. Something inside him resisted that memory. Not because it was unclear, but because it felt wrong. "Pull over," he said suddenly. Daniel turned slightly. "Sir." I said pull over. The convoy slowed. The SUV came to a stop beneath a quiet overpass. Engines idling. Lights dim. Daniel hesitated. Is something wrong? McPherson didn't answer. He opened the door. Stepped out. Cold air hit him instantly, but he barely felt it. The world outside was loud, busy, unaware of the war happening inside him. For a long moment he just stood there. Then, he pressed his fingers against his temple, trying, fighting, searching. Flashes came again, faster this time. A boardroom, contracts, power. Control. Voices calling him sir. People obeying without question. Then, a softer image. A small room. A broken lamp. Her hand holding his. Warm. Safe. Real. He inhaled sharply. The contrast almost broke him. Sir, Daniel called, stepping out of the SUV. You need to come back. This is important. Everything depends on you. McPherson turned slowly. I don't remember any of it, he said quietly. Daniel paused. But you will, he insisted. You always do. A silence followed. Heavy. Tense. McPherson looked back at the SUV. At the life waiting for him. Then toward the direction they had come from. Where she was. Two paths. Two identities. Two versions of himself. Daniel stepped closer. Sir, your empire is collapsing without you. People are already questioning leadership. You can't just disappear again. McPherson laughed softly. But there was no humor in it. Empire, he repeated. Like the word tasted unfamiliar. Then, is that all I am, he asked. Daniel hesitated. Sir, an empire? A beat? Or a man? The question hung in the air. Unanswered. McPherson turned away again. His heart beating harder now. Because something was becoming clear. He didn't feel whole in that world. Not even close. But then, Rachel's voice echoed again. You belong there. And that was the problem. She believed it. He closed his eyes. If he went back, everything would make sense. His identity, his name, his power, his past. But she wouldn't be part of it. And if he stayed, he would remain lost, unknown, incomplete. A life of certainty, or a life of feeling. His chest tightened painfully. Sir. Daniel pressed again. What do you want to do? McPherson opened his eyes. Slowly, steadily. For the first time since waking up, he didn't answer like a CEO. He answered like a man. I want to go back. Daniel sighed in relief. But then, McPherson added quietly, not there. Daniel frowned. Sir. McPherson turned fully toward him. I want to go back to where I woke up. Silence. To her. The words landed like thunder. Daniel shook his head slightly. That's not possible long term. You have responsibilities. I don't care, McPherson cut in. The firmness in his voice silenced everything. A pause. Then softer. I felt more like myself there than I have anywhere else. Daniel didn't respond. Because there was nothing to argue against that feeling. McPherson stepped back toward the SUV. Then stopped. Looked at the city again. I don't remember who I was, he said. But I remember how she made me feel. A beat. And that matters more. Silence. Then he turned. Fully. Decisively. Take me back. Daniel exhaled slowly. And nodded. The convoy changed direction. As the SUV moved through the city again, McPherson stared out the window. But this time, there was no confusion. Only resolve. Because for the first time since the accident, he wasn't choosing based on memory. He was choosing based on truth. And somewhere in a small room far away, Rachel sat alone, trying to convince herself she did the right thing, trying to believe she didn't matter as much as she felt she did. But she didn't know that the story wasn't over, not even close. If you were McPherson, would you choose the life you lost or the love you just found? Be honest, what would you choose? The SUVs turned down a familiar road. Closer now. Faster now. And this time, he was coming back on his own choice. Not as a billionaire. Not as a CEO. But as a man who finally understood what he didn't want to lose again. The road back felt different. Not because the city had changed, but because McPherson had. The convoy slowed as it approached the familiar narrow street. The same broken sidewalks. The same flickering streetlight. The same small, fragile world that had somehow changed everything inside him. McPherson sat forward in the SUV. His heart was already racing. Not from fear, but from certainty. She's still here, he asked quietly. Daniel nodded. If she hasn't left. McPherson didn't wait for the sentence to finish. Stop the car. It halted instantly. Engines quiet. Silence fell. He stepped out. Slowly. No suits leading him. No authority behind him. Just him. And the street he had once left behind. The air felt heavier here. More real. More honest. He walked forward. Each step pulling him closer to something he didn't have a name for, but felt in every part of him. Then he saw it. The small room. The same door. The same place where everything had begun. His hand hovered near the handle. For a moment, he hesitated. Not because he was unsure, but because he was afraid. Afraid she wouldn't be there. Afraid she would be. Afraid of what that meant. Then, he knocked. Softly. Once. No answer. His chest tightened. He knocked again. Stronger this time. A sound inside. Movement. Slow. Careful. Then the door opened. Rachel stood there. And everything stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Just looked. Like the world had paused to give them space. Her eyes widened slightly. Confusion. Then recognition. Then disbelief. You, she whispered. McPherson swallowed hard. Me. Silence. Heavy. Fragile. You came back, she said softly. It wasn't a question. It was disbelief wrapped in hope. I did, he replied. A pause. I chose to. Her breath trembled slightly. Why? McPherson stepped closer. One step. Then another. Until the distance between them was gone again. Because I remembered something, he said quietly. Rachel's eyes searched his. What? He didn't hesitate. Not my name. A pause. But how it felt when you looked at me like I mattered. Even when I didn't know who I was. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. I don't remember everything, he continued. But I remember you. A tear slipped down her cheek, before she could stop it. You don't belong here, she whispered again. A weak echo of her old fear. McPherson shook his head. I belong where I choose to stay. Silence. Then softly, I don't want a life where I forget this feeling. Rachel looked down briefly, trying to hold herself together, trying not to believe too much. Because belief hurt, hope hurt, love hurt the most. You're not the same man who came here, she said. McPherson smiled faintly. No. A beat. I think I finally became one. A long pause. Then, Rachel stepped forward. Slowly, carefully, like she was afraid he might disappear again. Her hand lifted, hovered near his face, then gently touched him. Real. Present. Warm. You really came back, she whispered. McPherson closed his eyes for a moment. Not for the world. A pause. For you. That was it. The final break in her resistance. She laughed softly through tears. Even after everything, you still don't remember how complicated your life is. He smiled. Then I'll learn it again. But this time, without forgetting you. Silence. But not empty anymore. Full. Alive. And then, Rachel stepped forward completely, closing the final space between them. McPherson didn't hesitate this time. He pulled her into his arms. Firm. Real. Like he had been holding that moment inside him since the accident. She didn't resist. She melted into it. Like something inside her had finally found home. Outside, the world kept moving. But not for them. Not anymore. If you watch their story from the beginning, do you believe love like this can really survive everything? Comment what you think their future looks like. McPherson pulled back slightly, just enough to see her face. I lost my memory, he said softly. A pause. But I think I found something more important. Rachel smiled through tears. What? He held her gaze. You. And for the first time, neither of them was lost anymore. Because sometimes, Love doesn't return you to who you were. It brings you home to who you're meant to be. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.